That was not a disrespectful thing.
It's just a factual one.
Yes, I do too. It's a good thing. People.
All right, are we recording? I'm going to declare us close enough to 6 o'clock to call this meeting to order. This is the work session for March 24th, 2026. The first item on the agenda, second item on the agenda is public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone to address the council. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to make a comment? Seeing none, I will declare that closed. We'll move on to item C. Item C, the first one is discussion regarding request from Ed Green Construction of the Westlake Landing LLC and Wagstaff Investments LLC to consideration of an impact fee reimbursement agreement associated with the development of property at 2000 West and 2700 South. I will be very clear about this, that this is something that we have commonly dealt with when we have new items of construction that actually build a piece that is on our master construction plan already. So this is something that we've legally dealt with before. It's not new. But Noah, if you would describe this particular situation for the council.
Yeah, you did a good job teeing it up there. In this particular case, we have 3 groups who are developing the southwest corner of the 6-way roundabout. And on our mass transportation plan, we have designated those as minor arterial. So that's a lot. Right now, it's just if you look at the road, there's really nothing there. So we're requiring them to widen the road, put curb and gutter and a trail. And we require developers to pull their fair share all the time, but sometimes we ask them to install what we'd call regional improvements. And so since we collect impact fees on transportation impact fees in all of our developments for this very reason, so that we can participate, and when the time's right and when we have the efficiencies of having them do the work, we can pay them back for some of those what we call regional improvements. And that's what this is.
So to be very clear, I think one of the things that we have to consider is sometimes it's not something they would normally have to do. But because they're working in the area, we can save money by having them do some of our work at the same time because they've already mobilized a crew. So there's a mutual beneficial element here. But now that you've heard it, the question is, does anybody have a problem reimbursing for the part that is public improvement? We're not reimbursing for all the work that they would do on their property.
How is the amount established?
The amount is established by the percentage of the work versus the bid that comes in. So it isn't actual, they have to submit receipts. They can't just tell us that this is a ballpark figure, but it is based on the percentage of the work that we're requiring them to do.
And then
Yeah,
this,
there's an exhibit in there, and so they've gone through with their engineer, and they've identified what is considered to be like an upsize that we've required them.
Let's see that.
And we have had our engineer in the past review it. I don't know if we did on this one, but we've had them review that in the past to make sure that it makes sense, that somebody's not just heavy loading the public portion and deducting for their portion.
And then this comes directly out of our impact fee fund.
In this case, what it would be is they would get back from what they have to pay, because they have an impact fee for the property, but if they're going to do this amount of work, we're basically discounting that amount.
As we're trading.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
the
are.
impact fee credit, so when they come in for a building permit, they won't have to pay that part. And after they get done developing, if we're still a little short, we can take from the previously collected. But overall, between all 3 of those builders, I'm confident that we will we will gather more than that amount in transportation impact fees.
I don't.
Does anybody else have any questions? Anybody have any concerns about this, or? It is money, so I don't want to put this on the consent agenda, but I will move it forward to the next agenda for a decision if everybody's okay. All right, I'm seeing plenty of head nods there. So now item number 2 is going to be discussion regarding proposed amendment to memorandum of understanding regarding the sale purchase of city-owned property located at 3000 West and Antelope Drive. Let me be really clear about this one because this is really pretty simple. When we wrote this agreement, we did write it with a kind of loose interpretation of the possibility of a hotel. We anticipated that we may have a longer period of time getting to a hotel justification because hotels really come as a part of a report that is kind of standardized and nationalized that says we see the need. And we know that we have been right on that border edge of where it justifies that occupancy. So when we knew that, we anticipated that this project could get to a point where they had plenty of interest in the rest of the property, and this one element could hold up the development. In this case, they've come back and said, we don't have a tenant on board for the hotel. And we do have an alternate tenant, and we could move forward as much as a year earlier if we release them of that. And so we anticipated it, and we actually wrote it in a way that we could do that without a motion from the council. However, what we do need a motion from the council to do if we're going to alter this MOU is if we're going to move up the timeline, because that would be the exchange that we get back on our side, is moving up the timeline of the project to get things built sooner. I will also tell you that I have talked to 2 of the possible tenants, and they want to break ground right now. So getting this closed is actually real, and we can move forward faster. Did I leave anything out?
Oh, sounds good.
So I wanted to be clear about where we are. We kind of knew that this was a possibility. I think the other thing that's a twist for me that I would throw out there is we talked just in the recent months about the possibility of what would justify a hotel in the city at another location. So maybe that's a better option going forward. Not that this is a bad option. It's not timely, but in conjunction with something else, it might make it more desirable at nearer to that function. Does that make sense too? Because I know I'm not being really clear because we're not talking about all that yet.
Yep.
Okay. Any questions at all on this?
Why is there a tire center on?
That's the exchange. The tire center wants to go in there. They did not have that on the plan. They would put a tire center in exchange for the hotel. Tire centers are a good use of, they do produce income. They're a little noisy, which also goes to the fact that since this is right next to the highway, it's probably not going to bother as many people as if it were next to a subdivision. But that's the tenant that wants to occupy the space that we had planned for a hotel.
Are we tied to that?
We are not, but we don't have anything in here to object to it. Are you objecting to that use?
I don't know enough about it to say whether I am or not. I was just wondering.
We are not tied to it. That's not a part of it. That's their suggested substitute use. And we have had this particular tire store coming around for about 2 years looking for a spot. They've wanted to be in city center, but every lot they've looked at has been close to residential, and we've thought that that would be a noise ordinance problem. So we've turned down those applications. So just so you know, that's the same possible tenant, and they are looking to be in the city. And we suggested that they look over towards this area, either here or on the other side of the street, because it wouldn't have residential neighbors as close by. Any other questions? I mean, we can certainly talk about any of the tenants. I do not know the 6th tenant, but I do know the others.
The major 2 that we really want
are in line.
It's-
They're set in stone.
The purpose is to just kind of not hold it up and make sure we still get those major two.
Which are,
Sure, Chick-fil-A
Chick-fil-A
and
and
Olive
Olive
Garden.
Garden.
We're all excited about those.
And Chick-fil-A is ready to break ground. They've talked to me already. They want to break ground now.
The rest would be what would be allowed in the commercial zone. So I don't, they're showing that as an exhibit, but that's not a set thing. They still have to go through a site plan and they still need to do a commercial subdivision. So they're just, we asked them to show us how it would possibly play out if there wasn't a hotel.
There is a financial institution on board with a letter of intent. There is, so I can't tell you which one it is yet, but there is one. We're probably going to get 2 or 3 in that area because there will also be one in the Costco subdivision. So that just increases, again, not a great sales tax provider, but it is a useful part of our community. Actually, a tire center up against the park and ride kind of doesn't bother as many people, in my opinion.
I just think we've had several developers evaluate hotels in the city and they're all coming to the same conclusion.
Yeah.
that it's too soon,
It's probably not, they won't develop one here, so.
or that it's just too soon.
Well, they say they need 70% and we've come in at 70% and they're saying we really wish that it was higher for us to put money into building a facility. I think that we give it a couple of years, we're probably going to be closer to 80 and people would say, sure, let's do it. Or the other potential use that we've talked to some people, that would put it over the top for sure. So I think we just have to bide our time and see how it fits into our master plan better. I do think it fits into our master plan better if we were able to get the other user online, and I'm working on that too.
Yeah, that's the trade-off. The hotel might be 5 years out.
Right.
And how many sales tax dollars will we get in 5 years if we let something else develop?
If we let, yeah,
It's a trade-off.
I'd rather see the development move forward.
I agree.
I'm kind of indifferent about tire center versus
I mean,
something else, so.
It's, yeah.
I agree.
we
I don't-
do have some residents who really object to a hotel in that
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
True.
Heard that as well.
Yeah, so,
It's a good area.
you know, I've not had anybody object to a tire center, but we haven't really advertised that either.
Well, I think that's a good area for a tire center and I think it would generate good sales tax, so.
Tires are expensive. So, I mean,
And
that's,
we do have to travel pretty far to go to tire centers now.
Yeah.
right?
Unless you want to buy from Walmart or Costco.
yeah, that's our only options at the moment, so.
Your competition, Costco. But, well, no, I think it's better to move forward quicker than later.
Okay. One more want to nod their head the right way? Okay, we're good.
The
right way? Well, I mean, I just try to go by the book here. So we got enough head nods that this can move forward. We will put it on the business meeting for a vote. The next item C3, is discussion regarding affordable housing opportunities on properties owned by the Utah Department of Transportation. And I'll just kind of give you an outline on this. They came to us and said that the governor has an initiative where he asked UDOT to look at properties that are still owned by UDOT that could possibly go up for auction that might possibly be used for an affordable housing component. And Noah and Brody and I met with them. They brought 2 properties to us, of which one property, the first one that I think it's the first one in your package. It's the long skinny one. Yeah. So that's the first one. Okay. So the first one is the triangular property that is down on Gentile. That triangular property we have it slated as possible commercial, but it is kind of small to be any major commercial. It could work out. What they're suggesting is if we allow it, or we're willing to work with them, the buyer would sign a 10-year deed restricted property that would have to be owned by the owner would get a discount. They'd have to qualify for the discount. I don't know all the details of this program, but what I am saying about this is that this property could go as housing. It's functional. The other property, we gave them the feedback that we do not think this is a functional housing element. And you saw in the packet the reason. In the packet, what we said was there's a very narrow spot where it connects with a major road and it does not connect in any other place. That is also in a place where federal guidelines say it's too close to other roads and would be a likely accident. So considering that, I don't want to put a number of homes where their only access point would be technically illegal by federal standards. It's a real disaster location. So that one, we told them that we probably would not support, but again, it's up to you, council. So if you look at these two, when we talk about these, we are not unrestricted to say that you can put whatever you want there. We're just saying that we could see some kind of element, and we could decide as a council what would be permissible there, because we still have zoning authority. And in the packet, you see that we suggested that probably a PRD would work in the triangular property, but the long skinny property, nothing would work because no entrance would be legally allowable. We'd have to tear down a house. At one point, I actually suggested that we look into buying that property to extend the yard of our parks, our new park center. It was more money than it was worth, so we didn't go anywhere. We didn't really need it. We just know that it's inaccessible unless you go through our yard or through a house that exists. It's just completely inaccessible.
Yeah, so the end game here is not to actually change the zoning, because a PRD development, before we change the zoning, we always require a development agreement. We want to know what we're getting ourselves into, so I think is what we told the state is we would get your input and provide some sort of letter. So, because they're gonna put these properties up on auction. And so they can include our letter in their auction materials to give the prospective buyer an idea of where we're at. So if we said, yeah, we think that it needs to stay commercial, or if we could see some single family development similar to what's adjacent to it, or whatever you guys envisioned, they're just asking for some input that we can include in a letter that they'll put in there.
And I actually think it would be really good of us to put together a letter for the long skinny property that says we would not entertain that because of the access. Because it's been up for auction twice before and it failed both times because they'd come into the city and people said, before I bid on this, can I know if I could develop townhomes or apartments here? And we said, well, we just can't get into it safely. So no. And then it didn't go to auction because they knew that we weren't. I mean, there's a safety issue there. I think you can all see that. It's too close to the other roads. It's too close to the overpass. It's got some blind vision spots. It's a problem.
What is the area across the street from that triangular? What is that on the?
It's
Is it
actually
commercial?
Bureau of Land Management, so it's not.
Oh, it'll.
It could become available, but right now it's BOR.
Where are you talking about, Paul?
On the south side of Gentile across from the
Yeah, just
triangle.
across the street from that.
Oh, Nature Conservancy.
Yeah.
So my only question is, well, when the governor's office is talking about affordable housing, what are they specifying that as condos, single family
They
homes,
want higher density.
apartments?
And that's where we
Because
could
I'll
see-
oppose high density
Yeah.
100%. I won't go for it at all.
And that's okay. We could say that the best we would approve here is maybe a PRD, which would be in our zone, 6 units per acre. And that we've done that in places and that seems somewhat reasonable. I think that a property like that, because it's so isolated from everything else, we probably ought to include in our letter that we would expect some kind of green space and amenity, because it's really cut off from anything else. You'd have to walk outside and around fences to get to any neighbors. So it's really an isolated property. So I expect as a PRD, you'd get even less density, but you'd have to require them to put some kind of amenity to make it green space friendly. But we could specify that. We could specify in the letter to the governor's office, we would not allow apartments because the density would be too much for the site. Or we would not allow, we could say, these are the things that we would find permissible in that zone.
So it's it's slated for general commercial right now.
Yeah,
Do we not think that's viable? I just hate giving away, if we're changing anything that's
Yeah.
the previous commercial.
yeah, previous council master plan is thinking that somebody would buy this lot and put a gas station on it. Because it's right there close to the South Gentile roundabout. It's not next to an exit, but you have to pass by this property to get to about 1,200 people in our city. They all take that to get to home.
Yeah.
So it's a logical place for a commercial development. But again, we don't control that. So if somebody came in and said, nobody wants to put one there, it just sits vacant, which is also fine too.
Right.
Yeah,
And we don't know that no one wants to put one there.
We do
It's
not.
Never been available,
It's-
so it's not.
it's not been available because it was part of freeway construction. So we've been over 5 years where this is sat in UDOT's hands and not publicly available.
The thing about this site is it's visible from the freeway, but there's no access. There's not an interchange. You have to go under the freeway. And the true intersection is at the roundabout with Bluff and Gentile. And commercially speaking, usually you want to be right on the intersection. The freeway actually cuts the site off from the direct frontage to the intersection. So I think commercially it maybe downgrades it a little bit because you don't have that true frontage on it.
And because of the
Intersection
raised
street.
freeway, you probably wouldn't see any signage, so you'd have to know that it's there. Cause you wouldn't see, you'd see it eastbound, but you wouldn't see anything westbound. But that doesn't mean that somebody doesn't take a chance on it. I mean, that is what previous councils thought was this would be a commercial area.
And the sound wall ends, and there's no sound wall right there.
There's no sound wall right there. Cause it's elevated freeway because of the overpass.
We have an ordinance that any new development up against the freeway has to build a concrete wall.
So the new owner would have to put one in.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to residential going into that space, like, it's not that I want to restrict people from being able to have homes. And if somebody wanted to live there, I would have an objection to that, but I really feel concerned about not having space for people to be self-reliant and have a garden and to the governor, I'll say it to Cox's face, we have done our fair share
Okay,
in having apartments in Syracuse and our growth has been astronomical. And that is one reason that I ran for office, is to oppose any more high density housing coming into our city. It puts a lot of strain on our resources, on our first responders, on our roads, on our water, on everything. It impacts everything. And so I'm completely opposed to any high density housing coming in.
as a smaller property, I could see why somebody would try to put in or request that we bend to the apartments, but at the same time, I think that we have a logical argument to say that that would be too much traffic. Because if you have a handful of houses, maybe, what did we think, maybe 12 or so was probably the maximum density. Then you've got an occasional user that has to come out on that short angle. But if you put 30 units in there, that's probably 60 cars that are gonna come in and out, and it's an accident waiting to happen.
And what
with
about
that
the
poor
impact to the
visibility.
existing neighborhood?
I don't think
Of
that'd be
having
an
that-
impact.
Well, I'm saying of having that mass
Yeah.
volume of people come in, that influx of neighbors right there on top of you.
I think I think their traffic patterns are far enough away from this site that it probably isn't an issue. If you look at that, they have to go way down Gentile and come back into it. So I think that traffic wise, it's probably safe, but, I think that if you put too many users on this property because it's just right under the freeway pass, it's probably not a good idea.
And we told them, we suspect there may not be support for higher
We
density
did.
residential, and they seem to be amenable to single family. So these are owner occupied, but price restricted, single family is kind of the idea that they were willing to entertain.
And
What's the neighborhood to the south? Is that R2 or R3?
it's,
Or sorry, to the
To the
it's
west.
RPC. It's the first RPC in the city, so
Those are
well-
about 6,000, sorry.
Yeah.
Those are about 6,000 square foot lots.
Is that like 6 per acre?
It's
It's around there,
about
yeah.
the same as the PRD would allow. It's just a bigger, more complex, because that's where we got our 50-acre land plot
Yeah.
So,
in return for higher density.
so if you look at the aerial photograph, you know, something similar would be about what a single family PRD would look like.
The other thing about making it single family is then you're more likely to have the restriction of owner occupied, as opposed to, it would be difficult to have any kind of restriction that's apartment that doesn't end up being some kind of subsidized apartment. And that is harder to manage from a city standpoint.
Well, on the location.
The location is poor, yeah.
Yeah, typically our higher density, where the city has allowed higher density is on arterials.
Yeah,
Right.
so this wouldn't qualify
I
for.
mean,
our
it's up against the freeway, but it doesn't have access to.
Yeah, there's no bus, there's no services, it's just kind of out there. Maybe someday on the other side. of the
Someday
freeway,
we'll probably get a
but yeah.
bus, but. You know, we're still way too far out here for UTA, so. Anyway, what are your thoughts? Are we okay to consider a letter? I mean, we don't have to vote tonight, but
I would never be opposed to having a conversation, but I mean, I'm pretty solid on my position. I'm not gonna move off of my position. I'm confident they're not gonna persuade me, so.
if it were single family,
If it were single family and it made sense, I would love to have more residents in Syracuse that want to live here and contribute to our community. I think we have a great place to live. But I don't want 400 new families in that little. lot.
no, I think we're talking, I
Yeah.
think we were talking about 12 to 16.
Yeah.
Between 6,000 and 8,000 square foot single occupant lots.
So 8,000 is like a third.
It's just less than, it's more than a quarter, less than a third, I don't know.
Just trying to push it to that quarter,
Yeah.
third, you know,
Yeah.
and with open space, with green space.
I like that.
Yeah, with green space, because it is a little extra, but there would be no parking, so we would
But-
have to put. Maybe a dozen, yeah, a dozen at 7,500, 8,000 square foot lots plus some green space.
And I do love the idea of starter homes in our community too, because it
Yeah.
really helps to balance everything out, bringing in young families.
And well, 8,000 square feet, if it's a third of a lot and there's some green space, I mean, that can be somebody's
That could be
forever
somebody's
home.
forever home, yeah,
I mean, that's wonderful.
yeah.
Correct, yeah.
Any other thoughts? All right, I'm gonna push this forward to another meeting. I don't know. If anybody has any real thoughts about this, what we'll do is we'll try to put together a letter that reflects the conversation we've had tonight. And you can vote on it up or down on our business meeting. All right, let's move on to item number D, which is discussion regarding proposed franchise agreement with Lumen. Steve will bring this forward. Folks, just for this one, it's not that complicated. We allow all carriers into the city as far as their ability to use, to put cable under our streets and stuff like that. I mean, there's restrictions, but we don't discriminate. Everybody's welcome. This just has to be updated, and I'll let Steve go over how.
Yeah, so this is, Lumen is just the newer name for CenturyLink. CenturyLink has been in our city. Before that, I think it was Quest. We couldn't find any formal agreement under those old company names, and so Lumen's just going through and wanting to renew or at least have a new agreement in their name. And I know they're doing this with a few cities in the county. It's not just ours. They're trying to clean it up with the name change. Like the mayor said, this is a common practice to allow them in our right of ways. It provides competitiveness for our residents for telecommunications. And then the residents pay a 3.5% fee on the bill that goes back to the city as well. It's a 10-year term. A lot of this is pretty standard. So if you have any questions, I can.
Considering it's really just the same agreement we allow all the competitors to have, I don't know that there's much other than just to allow them as well. And like they're already in the city, they're just not under their new name.
And the 3.5% is the maximum allowed by state law. And it's standard, everybody does 3.5%.
All right, so I'm gonna move this one forward. Since this is just a regulatory agreement, I'm gonna put it on consent agenda. Is that fine?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go for that one. And then while Steve's up here, let's go to item E, budget items. Number one is discussion regarding proposed amendments to the Syracuse City budget for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026. And these are just some updates. We know we do a couple of budget openings during the year for things that have to be adjusted.
Yeah, we try to think of everything that happens before the budget is approved in June, but with the growing city, there's a lot of things that happen throughout the year. We've had a budget opening in October. Typically, we'll have one in April as well. A lot of this is just cleanup. There's some few things. We had some grants that came in with the police department. Kudos to Chief getting that with the $55,000 grant for some equipment and some other things. So just if you look down the list, I'm not going to go through a lot of these in detail. If you have questions, I'm here to answer them. This is pretty typical, though, that we'll do adjustments throughout the budget a few times here.
We always love it when we have to add money from grants. That's the good side of the equation.
So it's an $84,000 swing. That
Mhm. At this point, yes.
And I can't remember, so on our park impact fee fund, that goes negative, but we can allow that to go negative?
We can.
legally you can. You're basically borrowing against your general fund money to do it, so it's not wise in a long-term practice, but it was one of the things we signed up to do when we built our regional park phase one, is to
Yeah.
use it a little bit more, knowing that we'll recoup that money for people. So,
Yeah, we should balance out, so that's good.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna move this one for discussion and voting on the business meeting. The next one would be discussion regarding proposed amendments to our consolidated fee schedule, and I'll have Steve go over these.
there's just a few of them in here. On the next agenda item, we'll talk about Robinson Waste. I'm gonna leave that one for now. CD had just a few updates they wanted to add and change in the fee schedule. The commercial sign fee is one of those, increasing $100. We do charge a solar fee, it's just not in the fee schedule, so I wanted to make sure that was in there. We did increase our building fees from $60 to $100, so some of these are just items to clean up. And the last one is the impact fee. We do have two plans that actually escalate every year. That's built into the actual IFFP and IFA. Their impact fee analysis plan. And that's every January usually is when we do it. So we do it this time of year. That's our, let's see, that's our public safety and our stormwater. Those are the two. So you can see the fees compared side by side. Again, those come straight from the IFA plan that's on our website. That's it.
Any questions on those or concerns? Where it's part of the fee schedule that would be implemented before the year end with a vote on our next meeting.
And we'll talk about Robinson Waste. If the council moves forward with that, it would be an effective date of May 1st. The other items would be approved April 14th or upon the effective date once you pass it in the business meeting.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna move to the next one, and I'll tell you why I broke this out. So Robinson Waste has requested a fee structure adjustment. It's written into the contract that they can request a cost of living analysis and adjustment regular or once a year. But because of this is a pass-through expense, we don't collect any money that doesn't go straight towards the fee. So that's why I wanted to break this out. This is not a council decision on what the fee should be. This is a contractual thing that we've already voted on. So they do have the right to request. If we were to deny, we would be breaking the contract and having to go out and find another provider. So this one is different in that way because it's not structured by what you decide, it's structured by what they've submitted.
Yeah, this is based on the consumer price index, so it's tied to that. So the 2.8% comes from that exact increase year over year from the previous year. Robinson Waste is pretty competitive in our city. They service several cities in the county. We're one of the cheapest rates in the county, just so you're aware of that.
I will say that I did get some news tonight that I was not expecting that regards this. I just came from a waste management meeting where I was informed that Robinson has sold a significant portion of their business to a company called Alos. So there is a controlling interest from another party, but all contracts, including ours, are supposedly honored as written. So just letting you know that on your radar that it's a little different leadership structure there now.
This contract is effective through April 30th, 2025. See that in your packet, so we do have one more year on this contract. At which time we'll go out to bid for.
But that was significant news to me, so.
Mayor,
Yes,
just letting you know I'm on if you need me to address any of the information that was in the memo that I wrote about this.
okay, that's Cassie. Does anybody have any questions for Cassie?
Nope, seems like a contractual obligation.
Right.
but-
It is pretty straightforward, I mean. But it is a pass-through as well, so I wanted to treat it separately and. In case you were voting for or against the fee schedule, this one's separate. This one's a contractual issue. All right, everybody okay if I put this on the next agenda for a vote?
Yes.
All right. So we're gonna move now to utility items. And first one is discussion regarding secondary water strategy for 2026. We sent out information that Robert had gathered about our snowpack as well as our heat index. Both are looking like a terrible match for each other. I don't know who let those people date, but yeah, they don't go well together. So
You are right, they don't. So, yeah, unfortunately, we've hit some records in a bad way. And what's really strange is you still see snow on the mountains. It's just not as much snow as we would normally have this time of year. We also haven't had as much rain. Precipitation is running average. We've got the NRCS keeps track of 45 years worth of data for precipitation, snow water equivalent, which is basically measured from snow melt, and they track temperatures too. And then our reservoir, most of our water comes from Echo Reservoir and some from East Canyon, but Echo's at 62% full, even as of, I think, 3 days ago. So it's not looking like it's gonna fill this year. I did go to a customer agency meeting last week at Weaver Basin. They were concerned about it. They are very hopeful that we'll get some heavy precipitation this spring. But they are considering they will do a drought reduction this year. How much, we don't know yet. Their board meets in 2 days and we'll know a little bit more after that. So it could be, you know, in best case, we're looking at 20% reduction for water that gets delivered to us for outdoor watering. If it is probably worst case is they're looking at 40% reduction for outside water, plus 10% reduction for culinary water. Farmers would also take a hit at that point too, with a 30% reduction. So we're hoping it doesn't get to that level, but a lot of it depends on the precipitation. So I'm coming here just to kind of make you aware of it. I also just had some things that I'd like you to think about, maybe give me some input on. I'll bring this back to the next business session or to ask you to do a resolution for how we operate for this water season. So in the past, when we've done some drought reduction years, we've worked on what I call the quadrant system, where the city is divided up into 4 parts, and then there's a no watering day on one of those days for each quadrant, and then a no watering on Sundays for all citywide. So basically then they could choose from out of the 5 days a week, which day to water. And in the early season, generally we've done before Memorial Day and after Labor Day, it's picked 2 days out of the 5 to water. And then during the, in between the Memorial Day to Labor Day, pick 3 days out of the week. Out of the 5 to water, so, but the only way that really works is if we do enforcement. So that would be needed if we go with that. Now, we are starting to get meters put in the ground. We are still not 100%. I think we're more like 80% done with meters on secondary. But we also have to calibrate them so they're all reading in the right units and make sure we're getting the data, it's all accurate and good to go. So that's gonna take a little bit of time too. But if we just rely on the meter data, that could be helpful, but we also, and we can give it to the residents, but if they don't know what their allotment really kind of should be based on their lot size, it's hard for us to say, you should be using, no more than so many gallons this year. And then you get to manage it. We're hoping we can get to that point, but I just don't know that we'll get there in time for this water season. I think we could for next water season. It would just take time to go through and figure out allotments. So for this year, that's potentially I'm thinking the quadrants, because we've done it over the past 5 years. This is not a new thing. This is something that should be, people should be familiar with anyway. And it would just require enforcement to really keep people on track. So that's what I'm bringing to you for consideration for maybe a resolution for next council season. The other thing is just dates, start and end dates. So our ordinance says May 1st, October 1st. Weber Basin's doing a May 15th start with full pressure, and then to October 1st.
So this year, we're not even getting the early season at all. It's not gonna be up and running.
So we still have Davis Weber, Canal Company, and they have not decided, but they meet tomorrow. I'm sure they'll have a discussion to talk about it too.
Whether it's May 1st or May 15th.
Yeah, and whatever drought reductions they may give us. Our water comes from 2 suppliers, primary suppliers. Most of it's from Davis Weber. It's kind of like a 60-40. So Davis Weber's probably the 60%, and Weber Basin's like 40.
It could be very awkward to manage if we get different dates from different companies.
So I'll see what Davis Weber says. I'll see what the Weber board says. Those are both this week. I think by the April 14th, maybe we'll have a little bit better idea, and I can probably come to you with maybe some options so that you can make a good decision. I do agree. It does make it easier to enforce when like a lot of cities are doing the same watering season and begin and end. Because then it's not just, hey, this other city's doing it this way and why couldn't we? So that's kind of where things are at. Do you have any input before?
Is based on what we think their restrictions are gonna be, does the 2 and 3 days per week quadrant system still work?
It did work.
Yeah.
So in 2021, we had 20% reduction. In 2022, it was even worse. It was a 60% reduction. It was absolutely crazy. But that's what we did. Well, that one, I believe we were at like we did the 1 day week and then the 2 days a week in the summer, if I remember right. But
It really comes down to when we have the heavy restrictions, we do have to enforce. Because there are people who just ignore it. And if we don't catch them and address it, then they'll use up their whole neighborhood's resources.
I mean,
And
I think enforcement is good. I think we need to have a well advertised plan. I think we've done a pretty good job of it.
Yeah.
The other thing with which you hear all the time is people think they're singled out with residents, and so they see churches or schools or parks watering during what are restricted times. So maybe some of the education should be why some of those types of areas have a different.
there's a different system, like the city tries to water when residents are not supposed to water so that we don't take away pressure from when the citizens are supposed to water. They take up more acres than the city does, so it actually makes more sense. But yeah, we have to do education.
So also in our city code, it requires, and this is an every year thing, no matter whether it's water conservation or not. Every year, large water users are required to submit a water conservation plan. Before we'll even turn them, we can basically turn them off until they submit that plan to us. And so that's everything that's 3 acres or bigger, which pretty much hits your schools, churches, parks.
Okay.
And then it also applies to HOAs. So
And we submit ours, the
Yeah.
parks submits
Yeah.
theirs.
We submit our own, yeah.
and we try to make it simple for them. Mainly, we're looking for a primary contact information if we have to get a hold of them. Also, we want to see what their schedule is like or what they're doing to conserve. And if it's the same as previous years, just tell us that. So
So are we, so on those plans, are we requiring conservation on their
Mhm.
part as well and reduce watering during
Yeah.
this time, so.
And I think one of the things that we need to be conscious of, and we'll probably have to do better education of, is that sometimes in those plans, we allow things to be different because they've agreed to other restrictions. So like some of them do day water, or like churches will day water because they're agreeing to use less overall. But they're using it at times when the pressure isn't compromised. Things like schools, they will water at night, so sometimes they'll water overall less, but they'll water heavier on like turf fields and not at all in like garden beds. They'll just let those go. So there are different options that they can put into place as part of their plan. But overall, if it represents comfort or conservation, that's the hard part that citizens don't understand is they're submitting for a larger parcel, they're submitting a plan for how I will use overall less water, but they're giving some freedom to use it differently than how we manage neighborhoods.
Are those plans diverse enough and varied enough that it couldn't be consolidated into like a one pager? Like if we're talking about education coming out before people start complaining and saying, here's kind of a simplified.
for conservation plan,
Uh-huh.
we give them an option. We do have like a 1 or 2 page little template that they can just fill out to try to make it simple for them. But if they have something that they prefer that's maybe different for them, like the church or the school district just might have just a blanket one that's for all of their schools, because it's not just our city or our specific schools or churches, then it may be just easier for them to give us what they use on other properties. So we give them an option just to try to keep it simple.
Okay.
But you're talking on the education
Yeah.
side.
Yeah, so we
education.
have access to it and it's there, but it could be released like on the city website, or we could have a section that says conservation, water plan or something. Is that?
I mean, you wouldn't have to disclose the details of every different one. You could just say
An
large,
overview, yeah.
Yeah,
like
large
over
property, 3 acres,
Here's
and
kind of a basic.
have different rules, but they are required to conserve.
Conserve
This,
overall.
these are the conservation efforts they are making.
Mhm.
It's gonna be interesting because every time water is a restricted resource, we get lots of people who like to find the problems in the system. Which I'll find, but I mean, that's why we need some enforcement. Because we'll have more people report their neighbor than fix their own sprinkler heads.
Another thing on education is you'll get complaints that they'll see the city watering the park every day, right? Well, there may be one of the sprinklers are on each day, but when there's 52 zones,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not.
so each zone will only get watered twice a week or
Yeah,
whatever,
right.
right? Even though you see a sprinkler on every day, because it's such a big piece of property.
In different part of the park, so it soaks in differently.
And another complaint you get actually, you see some of the city parks, how they're so green sometimes that people assume we're overwatering. But again, this is education. We have park maintenance staff that go to seminars. They
Yeah.
learn turf science and they understand fertilization that actually makes the grass green even with low water.
We actually put chemicals on our park that help absorb water faster. It's an actual fertilizer that will keep things greener and stronger, but it's an expense. And you could do that at your home too, but most people don't even research that type of thing. So You know, these are just different things that we've learned to do to develop high wear turf. And so it takes less water, but it's an investment we make.
Are residential customers able to do the same thing with zones? So if they did different zones on different days, they could potentially water more days than two, or we're saying you have to run your whole
It's,
system on 2 days.
so it's harder
or 3
to
days.
enforce.
What?
It's harder to.
It's harder to enforce. To do enforcement, we'd be looking at, I think maybe now I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
saying if it goes from,
If you're still not watering on the 2 no water days, but you're spreading it out.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah,
I'd say something on that. With like the residential, they could start watering at 6 o'clock. So they can get through their cycles. We have so many programs and stuff going on, we can't start till 9 or 9:30. And then have to be off by
Yeah.
10. So I think that with the residential, they can usually get through their cycles. It's just harder for us to do it.
We could probably work through that. It is difficult when, you know, a lot of times it's the neighbor that complains.
That's what I could say. It's,
And we have to go look at it, but
We have to address the complaint.
we have to work through it with the owner.
So is that just asking for more issues?
no,
If people are
I
seeing
mean,
water?
yes, but. Yes, but
I'll end up with more calls.
We're
basically.
gonna-
well, I'm not saying average, I'm just saying if someone interpreted as that.
Well,
doing it.
you know, it's not a bad thought, but the other twist to the whole thing is that you also have to work with your neighbor because most of our lines are split between houses and the one line supplies both. So you try to work with your neighbor to water on opposite days. So while you may have 5 days to pick 2, your neighbor's picking the other 2. And so you don't have that much flexibility because you want to have adequate pressure and 2 residents throughout most of the city, not every spot, but through most of the city, 2 residents share an input line.
But you could also change times of day of watering them too, or
You
times of
can.
night, you know, so you can.
I think between 10 and 6, so
So-
I think our city citizens are used to the quadrant, and I think they're used to the 2
Yeah.
days, and I think they're used to nothing between 10 and 6. I think they're really well trained, I am.
The
Yeah,
sprinkler
that's-
clock is probably already programmed for
The
it.
good news is we've been doing this for 5 years anyway.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
So
we're really good. I
it's
think
not-
just taking it up to that next level is like, let's just enforce it now and do our part to try to really have everybody comply with that.
Have we not done enforcement in the past?
It's the best.
In higher water years, we've not emphasized it as much.
Yeah, the past 2 years, we did not. We put out conservation messages, general messages out there. But we did not do active enforcement. It's more passive. So if someone called, then we would just put a door hanger on their door and just kind of friendly reminder, you know, conserve water.
Well, I
But
mean, I feel like for the most part that worked. Everybody in my community thought you'd get a ticket, so
Yeah.
so in,
they were afraid.
definitely in 21, 22, there,
There were lots of tickets.
And that's probably why they thought they would.
Oh, okay.
Because the years before,
Right.
they,
And that's,
Yeah.
Well, now,
we were training people.
I was gonna say that too. I really feel like at least the people that I've talked to, this has already been a conversation that's been had all winter long, that we're gonna have a dry summer and that's just what it is. And so a lot of the people in the public in our city that I've talked to are already anticipating
and
our
you know,
conservation efforts. So
I mean, pray for rain, everybody, because
for
that's what we all need. We're all in the same problem.
right.
We're trying to manage it by sharing the responsibility. So
And then if they don't let us, if they push us back to May 15th, and that's gonna be huge too.
the gardeners will revolt because they want to get their crop started early, which is fine. I understand why, but if we have a limited crop or limited resource and we can't get the supply, nothing we can do. I can't, you know, you can use culinary, I guess, but we do have meters for culinary, so we'll know. And you'll pay for it.
okay, I think I have enough. I'll bring back.
So we'll move forward with the discussion, but I think what I'm hearing is it'll be based on the same quadrant philosophy we've used in the past to manage this situation. Does anybody feel any differently on that? And you are welcome to come forward if you have a brilliant moment before next meeting.
I mean, you could just give us more water.
Yeah, yeah,
It's that easy, right?
yeah.
There are.
All right.
There are some cities that their strategy is keep it alive, but not green.
Yeah. There's different people have different strategies.
That is rough.
Yeah,
And people have been losing, in Syracuse, people lost their lawns,
yeah,
just trying to keep it alive, but not green, and they completely lost their lawns, just
yeah.
thousands and thousands of dollars.
All right, item number 2 under the utility items is discussion regarding secondary water metering project and the customer portal. So this is actually a really positive discussion I'm excited for, but I'm gonna let Steve spill the excitement.
Okay, so I've given a Utah code reference. That's kind of boring to read, but there's 2 highlights in it. State legislature said by January 1st, or by 2030, we have to have meters in place and a billing requirement by July 1st of 2030. We are doing this quicker than the 2030 deadline because we have almost $11.5 million in grant funds that go away at the end of this year. So we've been pushing this hard. You can see the breakdown. We have about $11.5 million in grant funds. We issued a bond for just over $4 million, a total of just over $16.4 million in city funds, matching funds, bonds, and grant funds. With that money, we've spent all but about $4 million of it. We spent about 75% of it. To date, this was as of the 1st of March, we had about 88% of our connections that have been converted and the holes dug out. That doesn't mean they all have meters in them yet. We still have about 2,500 meters to buy as well as radios. But the hard part is doing the conversions. The last 10% are gonna be the toughest. We have about 750 backyard connections
That we have to move to
that
front
we
yard.
have to move to front yard. So there's a couple options we can do. The first one was we could just put the meters in place and the radios in the backyard, which isn't the best option. We don't really want to do that. I actually just recently talked to the state representative over the grant, and there are some agencies turning back grant funds. They're not using them. One of the requests I want to make with the council tonight is our second option would be to run piping, basically a loop from the backyard to the front, set the meter pits and radios in the front yard and loop it back. Until we have a point in time in the future, we could move the actual water line to the front yard. You'll see it as in the budget retreat in our 5-year plan. I think in year 3, there's probably about $10 million of projects on the list, and that's what those are moving those water lines from the backyard to the front yard. We don't have to do them all at once if we can find a way to loop these. The cost per connection is about $2,500 to $3,000, just depending on the length and all that. That's about $2.5 million in project cost. My estimate is we can't do all those in our current funding structure, but I can make that request to the state. And there's a pretty good chance they could reorganize and reallocate some money to us in their, I believe they're meeting in their May meeting. So what we're hopefully wanting to do is propose that they allow us to do that, give us additional grant funding, and try to get those all done by October, November this year. The grant funding runs out in December. They've given us a deadline of October, November.
If we can get that extra money to fund it, because it's there at state level. So we're proposing an extension where we ask for an extension of the grant to get more money than we've had.
So along with that, we're also requesting additional grant dollars or money to use for our own tower network. So the original plan was and the cheapest option was to use Weaver Basin's towers, use their portal, and then they'd send us reports with information on water use. It isn't as ideal, especially when we're fully converted over 20,000 connections. But with this grant funding, we can actually stand up our own towers. It's about $200,000 that the grant will pay for. This is a critical decision point because we have to change the frequency of all of our radios either to read from their towers or from our own towers. With that though, and you'll see in your packet, there is an additional cost to us if we get our own data and have access to our own data troubleshoot meters, to have real-time data for our utility clerks to answer questions. All this information will be funneled through a portal that we'll advertise pretty heavily. To have our customers use. And the good thing about the portal is it gives you updates about every 4 hours versus once a month.
So people would know how much they're using, even if it's not billed that way yet. So we could get early user data. And the other thing that Steve hadn't mentioned yet that I think you have to know right now is the people who went with the Weaver Basin towers have now left there because it was too clunky and it wasn't working. It was too overwhelmed with information. So that's why we shifted back to the idea we might just stand up our own towers. Because then our people are served with actual information, not a day late information.
Yeah, 2 of the agencies, we were the last one to convert, and that's why we're doing it now. 2 of them that had converted have said, we just want to have access to our data, so when a customer calls in, we're not saying, hey, we'll call you back in 24 hours and we'll let you know why your water went up.
Is our anticipation, so for our citizens, the end user to have direct access to our own portal, because eventually there's gonna be limitations on how many
Yes.
gallons you can use each month or
Right.
Yeah.
each
And,
cycle.
and by a resident having access to their own portal and up-to-date information on how much water they've used. The studies they've done up at Weaver Basin show that they actually save like 20% of of the water usage, just because they know.
Is their
I
responsible.
think they'd be more responsible if they have accurate.
And that's why we want faster information. Yeah, because it really does matter if you're looking at accurate or you're looking at bad data, because it's a day old, because we have to use the Weaver Basin connection and relay system.
So to be clear, we still want to use their portal. To process all information through. They would do an API, so it looks like our portal. We'll have the data to troubleshoot on our end. And to be clear, Weaver Basin does a great job. They're a great partner. And from a standpoint of, we were originally going to go with them. The only reason I'm saying let's go a different direction is because we can get grant funding to get our own towers. We can pay for our first year of data under this grant. And we actually are the biggest user in the network, including Weaver Basin, when you count number of meters, because we have 2 systems. And that was kind of eye-opening. The Robert and I went to their annual meeting was, you know, at full build out, we'll be over 22,000 connections. The next highest, I think, was 20. So
How many towers would we, is it just one?
we'd have to do a propagation study, but we're thinking it's probably gonna be 2.
And the grant funding would cover both of
Yes.
those.
Mhm.
And
That's
what's the life expectancy of those towers?
Thank you.
I'm not sure exactly. I know our meters are at least 15, 20 years, I would think. I can get you an answer. I don't know if Robert knows off the top of his head. If you,
I don't know.
okay, we can get you an answer. They are, I mean, they can be set up on top of a building, so they can be protected from cars hitting them, hopefully, but. I'll
Don't
get you an
put them in a
answer.
roundabout.
So.
Right.
Right.
You never know.
Are fine here, don't you?
I want to be clear to the council, though, this method will cost us a little bit more, and that is in the packet. But I think the cost or the efficiencies that we'll gain from having our own data, not only install, troubleshoot, do all that on the public works side, but to help the customers on the front end with the utility clerks.
We could save it at labor over time because
think
our
we do
people
that.
get better information and are familiar and can help people directly.
And we're only gonna grow as a city. An eye-opening thing for me was 2 of the agencies, I think one had 9,400 connections, the other one had 7,000 connections, so they're not even half our size.
And they
And
were.
if they went away because they wanted their own data, I'm recommending that we go with our own data. Still use the portal. Interestingly enough, there are companies that provide portals. Even Census has their own portal. It's the Cadillac of portals. You pay like $40,000. So the fact that Weaver Basin's allowing us to do it through them, I think it's $4,500 a year. There was one agency that went a different route, and now they're coming back to Weaver Basin to use their portals.
So my question really comes down to like future proofing, right? Like, I don't wanna make a decision to go with the original plan and then we just kicked a can down the road.
Right.
Then we have to do this anyways. Is that what we're thinking? That eventually one day we're gonna have to build towers and do our own?
That would be the
Anyway.
optimal way to go from the get-go, and that's why I said originally we wanted to go that way. It was just the cost was just too high. We couldn't justify it. Weaver Basin was a good alternative. But with the grant funding, to me, it makes sense. Let's do it now because that's the direction we're gonna be in, I think, in the future anyways, as we just continue to
Yeah.
grow.
Is the grant extension and the request of additional funding for towers, that's also tied to those, tied to the meters that we're trying to move from the backyard, so we're trying to get additional funding for those as well.
Yeah,
So I did a summary. We have about $4 million left. We can do everything with the towers. I think we have about $1.5 million left to do the backyards. This would be about 2.5 million to do the way we want to do it. So I'm gonna ask for additional funding from the state. It's not guaranteed. I would recommend we try to do as many as we can regardless of if we don't get people.
Do we have to move the valves from the
was-
back to the
was
front, or
my
can we
question,
use the
yeah.
loop?
eventually for service,
Yes.
I mean, yes, because eventually we're gonna be in a situation where we're gonna have easement issues and backyard issues. If we have to service them, or if we have to replace or upgrade a line, we're gonna have to go through everybody's backyard, and that's gonna be an expense because we'll have to restore. So by moving to the front yard, it makes it easier for us to have minimal cost on operations.
Okay.
So eventually we'll want to do that. It was really just old school, really bad design. And we've seen that in other districts too. I mean, like we had a couple of sewer lines that ran through backyards. And the expense and the annoyance that you get from having to dig up people's backyard and then try to restore it and the claims are phenomenal, like, that's my favorite tree and,
Oh, that's my grandmother telling me.
yeah.
You're dealing with trees, sheds, fences and dogs. And other things.
And other things.
But it is an option to leave them in the backyard.
Yeah, but eventually that pipe's gonna have to be upgraded or restored anyway, so at
Yeah,
that
then
point,
you're
you
looking
don't
for-
want to do it
Just
there.
know that these are
You wanna do
oldest
it right.
lines in the city. That
Oh,
was
that's-
our standard before we went to the front.
So those are all the old ones. then.
They're the ones
Those are
that will
the
have
ones
to
that are
be
gonna be
replaced
replaced
soon.
anytime
First.
soon, yeah.
So they're already due. is what you're
Yes.
saying.
And yeah, they're.
So we already have to replace them.
We already do have to
I
replace
mean, they
them.
maybe got like 10 years left.
Oh, no, they maybe have
I
less than
don't
that.
know. It's hard to know what, like,
Yeah, I mean, these pipes were put in the original back in 1983, so.
They're young.
they-
This
It's-
year I was born,
So to
not
have
that
a
old.
pipe that's that long, is a long time.
Yeah.
Pipes
And
are
they're
generally
smaller.
have to, 30 to 40 years is like considered a max life, and we're already at 40 years.
And they're smaller pipes, they're generally like.
They don't
2
carry as
inch to
enough
3 inch
water.
Diameter,
Yeah.
and our standard has been, since 1990, has been an 8-inch main in the road, so. You connect someone, you disconnect from a 3-inch and get onto a 8-inch, you'll see a huge difference in serviceability to our residents, so. So eventually, we'd like to get to that point, we just can't replace all these little 3-inch backyard mains all right now. But setting us up for a future so that it gives us the ability to, when we have money, to replace them in the future. This is really the smartest way.
So we are future proofing because we'll want to do it better when we have to do it.
so if the council's good with this approach, the timing of getting the grants money to do the backyards will probably be right before the end of the grant ends. I mean, we'll get it done. The tower timeline is 3 to 6 months, so I don't know if the towers will be online before the end of the water season. We'll try to get them there as quick as we can. The good news is next year, we'll have all the data, we'll have information to give out to the residents, and we'll still have 2 water years where we don't have to bill based on usage. I know Weaver Basin did this, that they would give the customer their information that would say, you use this much water, you could have paid this much if we were billing based on usage, things like that. Education, so by the time we hit 2030, when we have to bill based on usage, the customers are.
So this is more informational. We don't actually need to take an action, or do we? We
Not
don't
at
have
this
to
point in time,
apply.
no.
We're gonna apply anyway and see if we can get it.
Yeah.
If we get it, we're just making sure you're on board to do with it what we're applying for, because that would take an action to receive the money. And so we're hoping to get it by May. So this is all just kind of preliminary. make sure that we're not doing something that you're gonna reject, because that's really bad.
The critical decision is either option one or option two. If we want to go with our own towers, our own data, we need to know that now, so we can program the frequencies of the radios to our towers.
And I think we do based on everybody else. I mean, if everybody else is turning away because it's clunky and not effective, we might as well do it right. We might as well follow the pattern of what people are
Well,
having more.
Well, I mean, that was my question, right, Mayor? It's like, if we did what the original plan was, are we
Yeah.
looking at 4 years down the road? We're gonna have
Ripping
to
it
go
out
to our
and
own
replacing it.
towers anyway, and now they cost twice as much
Yeah.
money because who knows
Yes,
what's going on in the
yeah,
world,
yes, that's what we're,
and there's no grant money then?
yes, that's what we are seeing. Is let's try to do it with the grant money and do it right.
Is the ongoing subscription cost to pass through?
So $55,000 per year is gonna be the ongoing cost. If we were based on that cost, would have been 35,000.
Is that passed on to the? I mean, it's only like $1.50 a year.
Yeah, the proposal would be that be a utility fee increase to the customer, and with 10,000 users in the system, we're about, let's say 20 to 30 cents on each system, so it might be 50 cents per user per year. It is a cost, and that's why I want to have this discussion with the council, so we know fully which option we want to go.
But if you're trying to play within the rules and not be charged, because the state legislature's already told us we're gonna have to charge per use. If you're trying to do that, having good information, I think is worth.
And
50
yeah, having
cents.
live data,
Yeah.
that's worth
Oh, yeah.
the user and.
Cause that will save you the overages that you would end up paying for. We want people to be able to.
Yeah.
To manage their budget better that way.
I think that's
And really, if we can get a portal that people are using, like Robert alluded to, if we could say you're allotted this amount of water, you could actually track it on your own property. That would be the ideal scenario, is you get this amount of water, use it wisely. You know, once you hit a certain amount, you're either gonna get charged more or some mechanism will be in place. Users can set alarms, they can. It does a lot with water leak detection, not only from the user side, but from the city standpoint. It's been proven that these real-time data, they can actually help with water.
Yeah, I think that would be
Leaks and
way
leaks.
better than water conservation.
A lot of good things that come with this mandate. It's interesting.
So this won't be a vote right away, but we're gonna go ahead and apply. All right? So moving on to items G, there's a couple of items that came forward from COG that I need to bring to the committee. So the first is the Great Salt Lake Scenic Byway Committee. There was a committee formed before the freeway was put in place to help get legislation passed that we all agreed to, where we would dedicate 177 and the path from 177 out to the guardhouse as scenic byway. And that preserves a couple of things. It requires basically we can sum this up as a no billboard act. And so they don't want big distractive things. They want to be able to let the beauty of the community shown through. They're asking to reinstate this committee, because when the freeway opened, they kind of dispersed. But now what they'd like to do is use the same committee to apply for federal funding so that they can get some unified signage for attractions, like they would add some signs outside of the byway that say Antelope Island, it's your next, and they would be not just your green sign, but they would be kind of nicer, like a national park style sign.
brown sign.
And so we want to help them do that, because our city will probably be affected more than anybody else, because we are the way to get to Antelope Island. We're also part of some of the other attractions. They would like designate certain things as, hey, this way to the nature park, or this way, you know, so we want to do that. I think it's good. And with some of the other things we're discussing, it would be helpful. They're asking that we assign a staff person because they plan to meet during the day. And they also want it to be somebody who has access to our data that they're going to use to write these grants. So I'm suggesting that we assign Noah to go to these meetings. He's going to have easy access. He's also agreed it's probably a once a month for an hour thing down at the county. Probably a good use of time. But if you really object, we can force Marisa to go, so.
Oh, let's do that.
And she has not agreed. Does anybody have any issue if we send Noah to this committee? I mean, I would love to have you guys do it if you wanted, but it is gonna be a middle of the day and it is gonna be a little bit tedious, because you'd have to constantly go back to Noah and say, no, what was our population? What's our ordinance with signs? Because that's what they're gonna try to coordinate. So I'm gonna put on the next agenda that we're gonna appoint Noah to this committee and wish him the best. The next item on our agenda is an anti-hate resolution. They came forward at the last COG meeting, and one city and the county have passed resolutions to be against anti-Semitism and generally against any religious hate. You see in the packet, I wrote a memo that explained that religious bigotry is on the rise, while generally racism is not, which is a good thing, but there is a concerted effort and a group that is out there. Now, I will say this has been a policy of our city. We do not generally pass a lot of resolutions that are for specific interest, because if we did that, every one of our meetings would have 10 resolutions that set aside a day for this cause, for that cause, for this cause. However, they're asking us if we will consider this one because it is kind of a movement amongst the whole county. It's up to you. We can write this. I put a sample resolution of what the county wrote. It's completely up to you, council, how you want to handle this.
I like the framing. If we vote no to it, then it looks like we like it.
Yeah, I'm gonna
I'm
preface
not
whatever I say
anti-hate.
that I'm not anti-hate, but I don't see the purpose of
That's
doing
what I
these
was
types of
thinking.
resolutions. It's political points and
Sure.
Yep.
I don't
We are
understand it.
against hatred in general. There you go.
And yet I
Here.
we run the risk of somebody saying, well, then my cause needs a resolution too, and
Right.
we could be doing a lot. Like, I will tell you that I already, in this meeting, we discussed it, and like Bountiful has a policy of no resolutions for any measure that is not directly tied to the city. So they have a policy that they've passed that says they won't do this.
I don't even know that we need a policy, but I don't. think
We don't
need
have to.
pass this.
No.
I feel like Syracuse is pretty anti-discrimination as a whole already for people.
It could come back to us that, oh, we're the only ones that didn't agree
Oh,
to
well,
put one out there. I'm not,
you could say that the
This is
Salter
your
guy
choice,
that's
guy.
still elected didn't like
Well,
it.
specifically to call out anti-Semitism, I just like to keep it general, hatred in general.
I agree.
and some of the cities agreed to that as well. They said, we'll do one that's just
Because
anti-hatred.
then again, you're just, narrowing it down to groups. It's like, no.
Yeah, I don't want to be partisan
Yeah.
at all. So I say, I would say that I feel like staying out of it. I don't even want
Okay.
to.
I would agree with that.
If you wanted to not do an official action, but, maybe something to promote anti-hate, we could have Kara put together something for the newsletter. Just like
An article that just says in general, this is a challenge in society. And
We don't want to see it in our community for sure. Yeah, I don't feel like it's a good use of our city council though,
To
like
take a stand.
to be partisan in any way.
Okay,
I agree.
all right, then we will not move forward with this one, and I'm perfectly fine with that. The last one is, we had, and we brought this to you already, that we had decided that we were going to try to raise money during the America 250 celebration to put towards a veterans memorial. And at this point, I'm starting to identify grants that we can apply for, but we're gonna have to come up with some official backing that we are for this, we're moving forward. We haven't actually taken a vote. I did a sample rendering that you see in your packet. It does not have to be that specific, but in talking with other staff, that there's actually several ideas that came from people here of what would it look like in our city that would tie to the similar things that we're doing. And we talked about, what if we do something that's lit from within, like our signs and all of our branding? We like that idea. Another thing that we, Brody came forward, he says, well, you'd like some kind of obelisk. And I said, well, let's make it 6-sided so that each side could be dedicated to a branch of the service. None of this is set in stone at this point, But I feel like I need your approval for us to start paying somebody to do an actual design, because we would not approve some thumbnails. And this is very high level. This isn't gonna be anything we're committed to right away, but we need to commit to the project so I can apply for grant money, because there are federal grants that we've identified that recognize veterans and could pay a chunk, a considerable chunk of the cost. And we don't know what that budget is yet, because,
I was under the impression this was gonna all be privately funded.
well, it's not gonna be funded by our tax dollars. That's was the intention, was we are not gonna do this, but we are gonna try to raise funding. Like, so we have an entry fee for the Americana relay race, the Freedom Run. And that will all go towards this. It's probably not gonna raise a lot of money, but that way the entry fee is just to get people to commit so that we don't have dozens of signups and nobody show up. So we agreed to put that towards this, as well as we can start soliciting corporate funding or federal grants. My goal was not to spend any money of tax dollars from the citizens, because that's general fund money that needs to go to other things. But if we could get a federal grant that pays and the matching funds from a corporate sponsor, I
But-
think that it's wonderful.
But you mentioned we need to pay somebody to do a rendering. Where would those funds come from?
They can be paid back out of a grant.
Okay,
So we have a contract right now for people that do renderings and stuff for us. That if it's no more than $5,000 and it's a time and materials contract, I'm expecting this to be around 2. It could come out of the grant and we just pay it in arrears when we get a grant or when we raise money. I think we'll probably raise that much in the city for private donations. So I'm not
Okay.
proposing this comes out. We would authorize it. The risk would be absolutely nobody supports this in any way, shape, or form, and that would be the most we would lose. But I think at this point in time, we have to get something a little bit more official. I like what we have, if anybody else likes it, but that was just my concept. Does not have to be the one to approve.
Is that putting the cart before the horse if we get a rendering now of something, but we don't know the location, so we're not exactly sure about?
I proposed this, I sent to the company for consideration. 7 locations in the city that could possibly, they're undeveloped park space. I didn't want to use developed park space because that's already on the books. I wanted to increase our park space. Of these, the one that I think that comes up that most people said would be functionally working is probably to put this adjacent to Jensen. And the reason is where is this there is a big swath of land between the pump station and the fire station. It's completely wild land at the moment. We got that as part of the UDOT thing in the fire station. There's already parking at Jensen, so that saves us money. It's next to the freeway, so if we build something large, it would attract attention and maybe give people a reason to stop and visit us here, which might be a reason for them to spend money in the community. So there are other things to it, but I think that there's enough space there to do this rendering 3 times over. So we would be able to just use that space. That seemed to be the preference. There were a couple of others that were mentioned. One of which was a part of the park that is developed, and I don't want to take away from that, it's just grass, but back there by where the birdhouse is, where there's a little triangle spot. This is next to it, so I would just like add on, so we increase the developed acres. The other spots that we looked at, we talked about maybe putting it in the regional park, but that's design, we don't really have design. I mean, we have something else designed now. So this is completely undesigned space. We talked about maybe doing something near trail side because it's it's not really programmable space. But again, the feedback that I got from the architects and people who chimed in for free, these are just friendly comments, said that that's probably not as exciting as the ones over by the fire station.
Agree.
And I like the idea of it being near the fire station because then I'll have some people that will look at it
Yeah.
once in a while. And I don't expect them to protect it, but I expect them to notice if something
Sure.
in, you know, shady's going on next door.
It's gonna be the firefighters that are doing.
Well, and I'll
They're
tell
gonna
you,
try to climb it.
I have an ulterior motive for this, and I'm just going to share this out here. If we get this done in that space and there's still more space, we might future add on a first responders monument that would kind of cohabitate with these in good space. We would honor both. And they would, you know, they would be separate. They wouldn't be the same thing, but I think that that would be a significant something for our city to have, to show that we honor those people. And I think we could also get a grant for that. So that could be phase 2. There's enough space for both. Thoughts?
I like it.
I like it. I love it.
I like it.
Do you like the vein of where we started this? Is that a
I
possibility?
like it going by our new fire
I
station.
love the thought of
I think-
Jensen.
I think by Jensen with the parking, I mean, all that makes a lot of sense. to me.
Peaceful, it's a peaceful place.
The design kind of centered on the obelisk things,
Oh.
excited, you like that?
Love
The
it.
internal lit thing, I really like that
I like
idea,
that.
because that's what, that goes along with what we've done in the city.
Just
So
my curiosity, how much would something like this cost?
I'm not sure yet,
Okay.
but I did look at some similar things. So that was one of the reasons why I went with a design like this, is because we actually came in at a reasonable budget for our signs. And so we could build something like this. I haven't priced flagpoles yet. Again, they could be separate or not, but thinking maybe well, it depends on the land work. I mean, the monument itself, we're probably 50 grand, the surrounding area, maybe another 100, because there'll be a lot of land work and clearing. We'll have electrical, but we won't need water
Maybe
for
solar,
for plants,
solar for the flex.
but we won't. But you know, again, I don't know. I'm trying to keep it within a level that we could actually get a grant.
Okay.
I don't want to design something for $20 million and go, oh, it never happening, you know. I want to see this actually through, and I think that if we keep it reasonable, we might just get the whole thing paid for.
But we do like bricks, like buy the bricks.
We can, but the majority of this money is probably going to come from a federal grant
That would,
or even the state grant. I've already reached out to the Veteran Affairs Committee. I have connections there, and they are willing to put forward something as a contribution. See, when we talk about those, or even corporate sponsors, we can get tens of thousands of dollars, where bricks are gonna raise
yeah,
maybe a couple of
$50,
thousand.
$100.
Yeah, $50 for a brick isn't gonna build this monument. So it's gonna be the big grants that, and it's money that they've dedicated to use for those causes. We would not get it otherwise. It's not money I can spend somewhere else. But I really believe that Syracuse needs something like this,
And
and
it beautifies our city.
Yeah,
it takes care of some space that we are not currently using too. I'd like to get that used. So any objections? You wouldn't be offended if we put this near a fire station? Just checking.
We can tell you our cost estimate for a 14-foot bison
Yes.
internally of that bison.
14-foot bison.
Well, including all the landscaping and everything, the estimates around 500.
Okay.
And this could end up being around the same too, but if we get the money from the Fed, or from Fed and the state, or from Fed, the state and the county, if we use all these resources, we could get this done. I can tell you right now, if we do a safety, safety monument next to it, Joe Hamlin's gonna be the image of the firefighter.
okay.
Just his mustache.
He
Legendary.
always gets embarrassed to say that, but that guy is
Maybe we could do a
legendary.
third monument, just.
Just
Just to the mustache? All right.
It's a good mustache.
All right, so if you're okay with that, this is not a voting item. We're just gonna start proceeding to get things in place and try to raise some money. We're okay with that?
Yeah.
Any no objections? Because if you object, then we gotta maybe do a vote. Okay, no objections. All right. Now, well, I'm gonna turn the time over to Colin, because we did our open and public meetings training, but we also have to do an ethics training. And Nobody better than Colin to entertain us for the next 10 minutes.
It's gonna be hard to beat the mustache comments. So, Paul, I need a guinea pig. In my mind, I picked you, but are you willing to be a good sport for the
Sure.
next 15 minutes?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're gonna talk about stinky fish. Some of you heard this talk a couple of years ago. If you walk up the side of the road and you see a dead fish lying there and it sort of smells bad and looks rotten and it's kind of squishy when you touch it with your toe, and you pick it up and it's slimy in your hands and you smell it and it doesn't smell good, my advice is don't put it in your mouth. That's how you avoid stinky fish, and this ethics are the same way. So I have some great news for all of you on the economic development front. There is a new franchise available. It's called Stinky's Fish and Chips. And Stinky's Fish and Chips might have hypothetically approached the city to want to put their world headquarters right here in Syracuse, along with their 15 premier pilot outlets, and then spread out from Syracuse and take over the world. You now know that because you just learned it in a closed meeting, and it is not yet public information. So Paul leaves our little closed meeting, and he goes out and he immediately buys 500,000 shares of stock in Stinky Fish, because he knows once this thing hits the ground and starts producing these 100% recycled fish fillets, that he's going to become rich. Ethics problem or not an ethics problem?
Yes.
Sounds like Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, are we following federal guidelines or
Depends on the.
Yeah.
Or the
there's,
city level.
there's probably an ethics issue.
There no doubt is, and that is that as city councilmen and city employees, we are not allowed to use non-public information to benefit ourselves, our families, our friends, etc. Okay? Paul decides not to go buy stock. Paul calls up the Stinky Fish Corporation, which is currently located in some guy's basement, and says, I am the best stinky fish fillet salesman you will ever find. I want in on your company. Problem?
Yes.
Yep. You cannot accept employment with an entity that's about to do business with the city. Next slide. I got that one on there twice, so ignore the top one. So now Paul says, gee, I don't want to buy Stinky Fish stock, nor do I want to work for Stinky Fish. It sure would be nice if I could work some kind of deal in exchange for my vote to approve this whole thing, if Stinky Fish would offer me one free fish fillet sandwich every week for the next 10 years. Problem?
Call that a lunch and learn.
Okay, no, you cannot accept a gift of substantial value that would cause you to depart from what you might do otherwise, which would be to vote against the Stinky Fish operation. And the one there at the bottom, if it appears to the reasonable person in the public that what Paul is about doing with the Stinky Fish Corporation appears to be something that would affect him or affect his decision, then he can't do that either. So it's based on the reasonable man standard, the objective standard. He cannot, without disclosure, accept that gift. He cannot, without disclosure, receive compensation. So he can't go to Stinky Fish and say, for $100,000, I'll get this through the city council for you. That too would be a problem. And there are some exceptions to this substantial gift thing. You can accept a gift under $50 in value. You can accept a gift that recognizes your public service. A little plaque for the wall, a little pencil holder for your desk, those kinds of things. You can take out a loan on your home at 6% or whatever the going rate is. But if someone comes to you that's going to be a new financial institution down here in the hot triangle and says, boy, if you sweeten this deal for us, we can get your home loan for 3.5%, you can't do that. You have to go at the same rates that are available to the public. And finally, political campaign contributions don't count. When do you have to disclose? You have to disclose if you're an officer, director, agent, or employee or owner of a business entity that's regulated by the city, or that's about to do business with the city, or if you have a personal interest or an investment that creates a conflict of interest. And that is generally 10% or more of the business ownership in you, your spouse, your immediate family. Penalties for violating the act. It's a Class B misdemeanor for small violations. It goes all the way up to a second-degree felony for large violations. Someone can sue and undo the contract or undo the agreement. That's called rescission. And that happens civilly. And you can be removed from office. So if you're looking for a way to get out of office and work solely for the stinky fish, come and see me after. Now, I didn't have a slide for the next one, but there are disclosures. We all know about disclosures. Every January, you file a financial disclosure that Cassie or Marisa sends to you. You fill it out, you file it, you turn it back in. If you don't turn it back in by January 31st, it's a Class B misdemeanor. Okay, so that comes to you every year. You also have to disclose upon being elected, whether you have any of these conflicts of interest. Let's say I don't have any stinky fish conflicts today when I am elected, but 4 months from now, I now have a conflict of interest. Do I get to wait until the following January to disclose that? I see one Julie saying no, and she's going to say that you've got to disclose it at the time that it happens, and she's correct about that. Also, if there's a stinky fish agenda item coming on the agenda, you have to disclose that to the mayor and the city recorder at least 10 days before the meeting. And at the meeting, you have to publicly disclose it and say, I just bought 50,000 shares of the Stinky Fish Company. You then don't participate in the matter. You don't get to turn around and represent Stinky Fish at the meeting. You're just out. And in fact, you're out of the room until the matter is over. You don't get to discuss it. You don't get to vote on it. And you don't get to talk to the other members of the council about it privately. So if you are disqualified, if you have a conflict of interest, you just take yourself off and you stay out until it's completed. I won't tell you when and how to file those 10-day disclosures because the rules change all the time. I did say that it was with the mayor and the city recorder. That's the current rule. The 10 days is the current rule, but I've never seen a legislative session where someone hasn't tried to tweak those to make the period longer or to make the public or to make the disclosure more public or something. So when in doubt, call Cassie or call me and let's walk it through. Any questions? I did do that in 10 minutes or less.
Consider yourselves trained.
And Paul, thanks for being a good sport. I got a fish fillet sandwich in my office for you after. There is one more thing I should say that you all probably know, and that is that a previous council has adopted rules of order for the council, for the city council. There are specific, and I will say more restrictive disclosure requirements and conflict of interest requirements in there. So when you get a chance, go back, take 5 minutes, look at those rules governing the city council's procedures and decorum and so forth, and take a look at them. They're kind of the same, but they actually are more restrictive than what the state law requires. You have set a higher standard
And
for
that is
yourself.
located in the toolkit on the Teams channel.
Yep.
All right, we are going to invite Cresta up, who is our Parks and Recreation Director, and we are going to do our biennial review of the Parks Department. And this is one of my favorite subjects because I love parks.
Well,
And look right there off, near that site is what we were just talking about. So
yeah, it's a beautiful picture. And before we get started, the pictures were of Kara. So very grateful for her for all that she does for all of us departments, and she's taken some great pictures. So let's move on. Our mission at the Parks and Rec is to provide accessible, high quality parks, events, and recreational opportunities that improve our community health, well-being, and social connection. We will unite is what we say, and we repeat this monthly. We have descriptions with each pillar, and I'm not going to go over those with each of you, but you are more than welcome to reach out to me and I will tell you what those are that we try to live by. But we want to do more branding and get that out with all different kinds of things so that our citizens know what we're about. We're going to be talking today, obviously, about our vision statements and the key results and KPIs that you guys approved back in March. And then we'll discuss our personnel and organizations, cemetery expansion, updating our master plan and IFP, and then how we want to name our regional park. The first one, our first vision statement is Syracuse City offers well-maintained parks and facilities that accommodate diverse recreational needs. And our key results are parks conditions consistently meets high standards, and we strive to provide recreation opportunities for all age groups. I wanted to show you our KPI for this one is that we have a percentage of our, go ahead, next one. Our percentage of our parks and facilities are rated good or better, for internal inspections. So I wanted to, like we said, we just started these KPIs, so we don't, I don't have a percentage for that, but I wanted to show you the maintenance plans that we do have in place, with our parks and our community center. And we do internal inspections regularly, weekly, monthly. And then I wanted to give you some quick facts, because I think sometimes a lot of people just think that our parks, people just go out and mow, and that's what it is, but we maintain a lot in our parks and our community centers. And so you can see within our 16 parks, we have 67 landscape beds, 22 playgrounds, 4 volleyball pits or courts, multi-use trees, and this doesn't include all the ones that we're gonna get the regional park. It's, 2,300 trees that we maintain. 17 pavilions, 18 restrooms, 6 baseball fields. We have that pump track. And then the irrigation, because I don't think people think of the infrastructure underneath, miles and miles of irrigation that we have to maintain, which is a lot. And then we have our splash pad, our cemetery, Jensen Building, Community Center. With that, the maintained acreage we have is 160.57. With the regional park, which will be done here in June, will be 176.27 that we maintain. And then along with that, you guys know that we do 18 miles worth of trails and just continues to add. So that's what we need to discuss with next, because coming with maintaining parks and having them look as great as they do is our staffing. And one of the KPIs is our staffing per acreage of maintained space compared to benchmark cities. So when we started doing this, we were trying to look, we were meeting with Brody and Steve on how we could actually get the staffing per acreage, because when you look at the national levels, it's not the same as what we would be doing here. It's definitely much more. And so we decided that we would get our benchmarking cities, and we sent out the information, asked them their acreage, what they maintain, the employees that they have just in the parks maintenance division, and then what that came up to. And that was for your FTEs, so your full-time equivalent, which is whether it's a full-time person, and that's worth 1.1 person, and then you have part-time, which is 0.5, and then seasonals, which are 0.33. So with our 176 acres that we'll be maintaining this season, we have an equivalent of 12.96. But what I have to explain with that is we have that for the FTEs, but our seasonals, which is a huge thing every season, but we really only get them for 3 months out of the year, because we're really getting just college students. So out of the 12,480 hours we're supposed to get, we only average about 5,116. So that's why when you look and we're saying that we're stressed and stuff, it's because the front season and the end season always ends up being very difficult for our staff. And so with that, if we have the 13 FTEs, we maintain 13.6 acres per FTE. And our benchmark cities are doing, in the average, 10.5 per employee. So you'll see this next slide, as we say, and we're looking at, to get up to the average, we would have to add 4 FTEs to get to that average. The next slide we're going to talk about is our KPI is our maintenance budget allocation per acreage of maintained space. Oh, go back. Yeah. As maintained space. And that's kind of the same problem that we had. We were trying to look at national, and that's very difficult to do. It was actually telling us to do it per population, which didn't make a whole lot of sense. And so that's why we went to this. And again, we went out to our benchmark cities and asked them what they do to maintain their parks. And again, we're at 176 acres with 1,495,000 is what we budget. And so our cost per acreage would be 8,481. So we are below the average of cost per acreage, and our benchmark cities are 10.3. So with that said, when we were looking at what would equal us out and get us average, adding the 4 FTEs would put us at a line almost exactly. We'd be at 10.2, they're at 10.3. So the next slide with our KPI is that we strive to provide recreational opportunities for all age groups. And if you can see, we have on the left side all the programs that we're offering right now. And one of our KPIs is to investigate 2 per year. which we have done. So our new program offerings, I don't know if you guys have seen it around, but we've offered street hockey. And people are loving it. It's been really fun. I actually was one of the ones that was kind of like, I don't know. But it has been such a good thing, and we had so many people. So we started that in the fall. And I know that it's probably because the Mammoth are becoming so huge here. And so we started that. We started our we had clinics in street hockey. We were doing baseball clinics, and we also are trying to do a 3-on-3 basketball. We offered that. It hasn't been a success, but we're continuing to do that. But outside of that, we're offering inside the community center. I think you've heard me talk about this before, is our contract employees, trying to get more into the community center to get classes and clinics and camps that we really don't end up having to do a lot with. We just have to get them in, and that's our STEM camps. We're doing a jump rope clinic, and they're going to do a huge national competition at the community center on April 18th. So if anybody wants to come and watch that, we've got people coming from all over that are going to be watching that. But we thought that would be a nice opportunity to introduce some jump rope clinic and workshops and camps. So we're going to be doing that. And then like we said, we have partnerships that we're investigating with baseball and softball clubs, because we're trying to bring people in the weekends to help with our economic. And then we're doing a high school basketball tournament. And then we really want to get adult baseball started in the city. We have a nice new field, and so we want to be able to partnership with a baseball program that's already kind of set up. So next, I wanted to show you the participation numbers that we have. As you can see, they're growing. Again, we did fall street hockey and spring hockey, and those are just growing, but we just continue to grow in all of our programs. We don't have our baseball and softball this year yet, but we're reaching, above 1,200 in a lot of our sports and our combined sports. And then the next slide is just our participation in our, not unlike our non-sports that we're continuing to do. It's lower numbers, but it's we offer, and they're just continuing to grow. Moving on to our vision statement number 2 is that the Parks and Recreation Department provides financial sustainable recreation programs. And that our key results will be that there are sufficient revenue to cover direct costs of our overall programming. To the right, you'll see that we do a cost analysis after every single one of our programs, so that we see that we're making money and covering our costs, and we're hoping to bring in 10% so that we can help cover the costs of our coordinators. Next slide. This is showing, and I'm really happy to show this, because as I was looking back in past ones, there are definitely programs that were not, because our KPI is that our overall costs for the programs will be financially sustainable. But every single one of our programs is in the black, and we're really proud of that. Next slide. Okay. Vision statement number 3 is the city has a comprehensive improvement plan that ensures the upkeep and enhancement of park facilities. Our key results are our park and community center improvements align with city's parks master plan, and our projects are completed within an acceptable time frame. As you see, you guys know, you guys work with a 5-year plan all the time. And so it's a working document that you guys are always seeing, we're always working with. The next slide is about our master plan though. And just so that you guys, the last time we updated it was in 2019. But it wasn't like a full update. In 2016, we actually sent stuff out to the community. They gave us feedback. We had someone draw maps and do things for us. The 2019 was more of a revised, because it was 16 pages, I believe. And we, whittled that down a little bit. But in the master plan, and one of the KPIs is that we have 5.66 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents. And as you can see, we're not meeting that goal. We're at, if we have 39,000 people, which we do, we should have 218 acres of developed property. And I lifted the national average there for you. Our actual developed acres this summer will be 176, which we're 41 acres short.
Does that include the regional park?
Yep, that's the 176 is with our first phase.
Okay.
So the 41.73 is we're falling short at. And we do have undeveloped parkland, which is 77 acres, but a big portion of that 20 acres, we have our 40 acres, and then we have 20 acres that as the fields.
And I do believe that the development on that was that we really wouldn't be developing.
Yeah, it's not a real.
It's
because
not.
It doesn't have sewer fall.
Yeah,
It's a real limited use space, because we can't put bathrooms on most of it.
You could almost count it as developed.
I guess we could, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we developed all that, we'd be at this, at 6.51 per 1,000 residents. The residents, where possible, have to have access to a park within 1 mile or less. And we were close to that, but as we're growing, it is definitely, we're getting out of whack, which is a reason why we need to update our master plan. And then our overall mix would be 70% active and 30% passive. And right now we're currently at 64% active and 36% passive. So we're working on that, but as you can see, it's like really outdated, and as you'll see, it was one of our future considerations. That's what I want you to kind of keep in mind, because we've never been able to reach the goal that we've been putting in there. So maybe we need to reevaluate the goal that we're trying to shoot for. The next one is our KPI is that our park projects are completed on schedule per year. I just wanted to list like all the projects we've done in the last 2 years. We have met 80% of our projects completed. Things can change throughout the year as things are unseen, and so we adjust and move stuff around. As you know, it was a struggle to get the park maintenance facility completed, but we did it. And it has been such a huge benefit for our parks division. Like, we are so grateful for that. It's been a game changer. We've done major changes in the Fremont Park. It's still ongoing. We're still going to be putting in some parking and rearranging some irrigation, but we got a new dog park that everybody's been really enjoying there, and a new pavilion. We've got new concrete, renovations to the restroom. So we've done a lot there. As you guys know, we've started the regional park phase 1, which I don't know if you guys have had a chance to go down. And if you haven't, go on down there. It's pretty cool to see. We have done a lot of stuff at Founders Park, and we're just continuing. You probably see the construction over there. We just put in, got the new lights put in, and last night was our first night of using them. And because of that, we've been able to expand our soccer program, which has been great. We were able to add teams so we could go later into the night, which was the whole point of putting those in. So we're good on that. And then we got the BMX and the pump track done. We're still having to do our pavilion, our landscaping. But what's exciting is what we wanted to happen with the BMX the BMX track was to get things here nationally, and they didn't ever think it would happen this soon. But they were going to be able to bring a national race here in August, which will bring a ton of people here for a whole week, a ton. And that's kudos to them. The volunteer, that they put into the work hours that they put into that. It's unheard of that you get a national conference that quick. And so it was crazy that they are already getting it, but they're going to have everything ready to go, and they're pretty excited about it. So next slide. Our next one is we foster a strong sense of community pride through improvements, events, and services. And this one should be, it's our citywide vision statement number 2. The city produces and sponsors events and programs that improve the sense of community in the city. Next slide. As you can see on the left is our special events that we do. And Leslie does an incredible job with those. She also actually deals with all of the service hours with the community, whether they're court mandated or just people wanting to volunteer, or with our special events. So we wanted to show, and that's one of our things is that the number of volunteers engaged in city events, programs, and civics bodies, that we're showing that we are having a lot of community service done for our community. But what I didn't show here, and what I'm going to keep track of, is the volunteers that we get on the recreation division side. We could not do what we do without volunteers, and it is thousands of hours that our volunteers put in for coaches to make our programs run, and we're very grateful for that. So we started keeping track of that to make sure that we can report the volunteer hours back to you guys for that. The next one is about social engagement, media engagement for next one. Yeah, the social media engagement. Again, I'm thankful for Kara. She's the one who pulled all this data for us. It was interesting to see, this is from data at Founders Park from Placer AI, which tracks your cell phone, to see the number of visitors we had during Heritage Days week and the pumpkin walk. I don't the pumpkin walk was a little off, and so she wanted another year to kind of see that, but I still wanted to put it up because I think that that was a year, the 2024 was really cold. And if you remember, people don't want to come to that when it's really cold, but we had over 16,000 visitors for that. And then Heritage Days, as we saw in 2020, 28,000 visitors came into the park throughout the week, which I think is incredible. So we wanted to show that. The next slide is our social media engagement. I'm very grateful for Kara for all the time and effort she puts into social media for our department. The communication and consistency has been a huge difference for us. And as you can see, you know, having almost 70,000 views on Facebook and 100,000 views on Instagram is a big deal. So next, now getting into our future and our future considerations, we're going to talk about our personnel and organization, cemetery expansion, update to our master plans and naming of our regional park. This is our current org chart that you see. We've got in the more green is our parks division, which is overseen by Chad, our assistant director. And then on the rec side, we've kind of divided our responsibilities, but also work very closely together to make sure they both run efficiently. But as you can see, that's what we have right now. Next slide is what we've talked about before and what our staffing situation is. We have the 5 positions that you'll see in our thing was the 4 full-time park maintenance workers that would get us up to the average. We've also been asking for a full-time department administration professional, because if you remember, we don't have one of those down at the parks maintenance facility. And so it's locked up most of the time, but it's also Chad and Braxton spend a lot of time doing administrative duties because we don't have anybody down there. So we have been asking for that for a couple of years. And then we're going to ask for one title change to go from a coordinator to an assistant operations manager of the community center. As you saw, there was a whole line for our recreation manager, and we've had struggles with with this position only because there's just so much to do. And we looked at our work charts throughout our benchmark cities, and none of them oversee also the communities, like their community centers or their complex. It's a lot to have to look at, and things fall through the crack. When you're focusing on the community center, then something's getting lost over here on the rec. And when you're focusing on the rec, you're getting lost. And we could be asking for a new manager, but we know that our frontline stuff is the most important. So Chad and I are going to divide that between parks and rec, and we'd like to have a recreation coordinator that will focus on the community center, but we'll also program inside of the community center, which would be all of your contract employees, anything that's happening, pickleball, anything that's happening on the inside. So we just wanted to just say that our demand right now with the parks, it exceeds our current staffing capacity. And I know that the mayor said like he's working hard to figure that out. But our park staff, they are amazing. I am so grateful for them. They work so hard and they have such high expectations of themselves. And as you look around at our parks, the pride that they take in them is extraordinary, but they are overextended, and each of our seasons are at risk of burnout every season. And as you can see, part of that reason is because seasonals, we just don't get the seasonals. If we could expand and get like 10 more seasonals that would take that off, we would do that, but we just don't get the seasonals. And it's not just a Syracuse problem, it's all the cities around. They all struggle with getting seasonal employees. As we grow, our park systems grow, we must grow our staff. You know, we grew our parks 10% this year with the regional park coming on and the dog park and all of the stuff we're taking on at the West Davis corridor. So if we don't get new staff, we're going to have to look at what we can reduce. And that means we'd have to bring to you guys and say, what do you want us not to maintain? Because we cannot keep going the way that we're going. It's just not working. And so there's hard decisions. We understand that, but we're just going to, and if we have to, you know, cut some services and things, then that's what we'll have to do. But we just want to just be, you know, open with you guys that they're at their capacity. And in the future, I just want to reiterate that when we're talking about new projects and what we want to bring, we just have to make sure that we are looking at, you bring something new, you have to add staff. Every 10 acres that we have, we should be bringing on a new employee or an FTE, whether that's part-time that you know, helps offset that. But we bring on these new things and then we're trying to figure out how we're gonna maintain them. So the next slide kind of shows, oh, sorry, I got ahead of myself. This is the proposed changes if we were to hire, where they would go. Like I said, we would have the assistant operations manager report to me, and then Chad will be taking the active parks. We have 3 divisions. We have the, I guess, pillars, and we have the active, the passive, and then the cemetery. And it's a lot for one manager to focus on, and instead of asking for a manager, we're gonna divide and conquer there. And so he'll take on the active part of it. But if we get new people, where the red is where it would go. One would go in each division, and then we'd have 2 in active because we are getting the new regional park, and that's where we have a lot of stress. So next. This is what I wanted to talk to you about, is if instead of in the other departments, they can say, like, if we go up 1,000 people, we're gonna need this. If we go up, it's easier to be able to say, we have 5,000 people, we need 5 new officers or 5 new firemen. We don't have that, but again, it goes back to acreage. So I just wanted to show in the next 5 years what our capital improvement project is showing that we're gonna be adding, so that you guys can see that. And that you'll understand that when we come to you, and as we are gonna be talking about this coming up, that as we discuss to add like a cemetery expansion, or we try to do the legacy park expansion, or add more trails, again, that we're also looking at having to add more staff with that, if that comes along, and not the staff that we're saying we're behind, but new staff. And the regional park phase 4, like, just really take that into consideration, because 40 acres that's coming on would constitute like 4 FTEs. So when we are making those hard decisions, that's something that we need to look at, is that we bring staff along with it. Next. The cemetery expansion, which we need because we're down to 53 plots as of when I put this slide together. We only have the single plots available. There's no pre-sales allowed. Plots are available to Syracuse residents at the time of death only right now. We are looking at reclaiming plots. There's about 88 plots that we can reclaim. And so we're working towards doing that.
Reclaim plots.
So it's ones that have been purchased for years and years ago, and that we can't get a hold of
We
anybody.
can't find an owner.
Yeah, so we have to go through this whole process.
They're buried somewhere
Yeah,
else.
or
They
we
decided they
just-
got better real estate to reside in.
Yeah, they like it
Less.
better, or that they, have passed on and just never passed those on. So that's why we try to reach out to family members to see if they can come in and prove. And we do a whole process. Colin's been working on that to make sure that happens before we reclaim them. But that's in the oldest part of our
If they're
cemetery.
not used by the people who bought them, they could pass them on, but they also need to let people know that they have ownership of this. And what happens is occasionally over time, their generations pass and nobody realized that a plot was bought for somebody who's now buried somewhere else.
Right.
So when it's unidentified, we can't find an owner and it has to be old, but our cemetery is really old. So that means that there are plots that we just can't find a living relative for. And if we can't, then we're gonna be able to resell them because, nobody's claiming them.
It's good.
And then our cemetery infrastructure, the cemetery that we have now, like not even expansion, we have storm drain issues. There's roads, as you can see, that need to be replaced. Our irrigation system needs to be redone. The fencing up front, which I know that some of you probably heard, like there's pieces missing of it. We want to be able to do a fence for the whole entire thing.
Mhm.
And so it would look, so that's why we've held off on that. And then our maintenance facility there that we are going to have, it's in our 5-year plan that we're going to have to do something with that there, because we still work out of there. The next one is updating our parks master plan. It's like I said, I'm not sure why I have FY27, guys, because that's because we wanted to do it in FY27. That's when we have it in our master plan. It was last revised in 2019. And like I said, the community involvement, the last time we did that was in 2016. And so we went out and looked and saw what it would cost us to do that. And we'd like to get, obviously, the community involved again to see what going forward, what we need to do. We also need to update our Trails Master Plan, which hasn't been done till 2012, and combine those. And then update our impact facility plan, and add the community center so that we can, when we need to do renovations and expansion, we can use that.
And those can all be paid for through impact fees.
Impact fees, yeah. And we have that, those are all in our 5-year plan. So we're past that. We're past our 5 years. And it was 5 to 10 years. So we still have time if you don't want to do them right now, but we would recommend that we start working on these master plans, at least first, our parks master plan. The last thing that I have is naming our regional park, or the process we want to do of naming our regional park. We just are at the point where we have to look at whether we're gonna do signs or not do signs.
And I
And
have pause here,
Okay.
so I'm gonna interject.
Yeah, you're fine.
Because my only thing is naming a regional park of significance is an opportunity to maybe sell a sponsorship to the park. And so I don't want to name it just randomly, or I want to see if we can get a corporate sponsor, because millions of dollars can go into that. And so it's going to take work. It's not something I can do overnight. So we may have to delay some of this and see if we can get some income that way, because there's a lot of parks still to build. And if we could find a way, I mean, people do it all the time in all these communities. People make an investment. And so let's see if we can realize that. That's what I'm suggesting.
And that's great. If we just want to make sure that we're putting it out here to the council so that you know, so that when we're almost to where.
Hard to have an unnamed park.
Yeah.
We have one in the city right now. The linear park never really got a name, but it's really not a usable park either. It's a green passageway. So it is harder when you don't know what to call things. But
this
I
is a
think
good
we,
name too,
I
regional
think,
park, so
yeah, I think
we
we
can sit on that for a minute while we.
have to see if we can't find a way to get money out of that. Cause it's so hard, it's so expensive to build. We gotta get some support. Anyway, that's where I'm at.
And I just wanted to show a picture of that artificial turf at the regional park, which is gonna help us with conservation efforts also. So that's just a picture of it. Next.
Robinson Regional Park.
No, I would. I definitely don't.
And all
I
you-
definitely do not want to statue. You know what I mean?
All you need to do is give us $10 million.
I have it.
For free the rest of your life.
Yeah. I can use it for free whenever. And then I just wanted to say, I know that all the departments have amazing staff, but I am so grateful for the staff that I have and the time and the effort that they put in, and they have such pride in what they do. Our rec staff and our parks and special events, I'm just so grateful for them. But I wanted just to share the few pictures of this is our why. We do it for our community. We're so grateful for the opportunity to serve them and to be able to bring joy and bring our community together. And that's what we really feel like our department is here to do, is to bring our community together and joy. So with that said, any questions from you guys? All right, thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Krista.
Seeing none, I am going to exercise my unwritten rule, and that is when our meetings go beyond 2 hours, take a 5-minute break. So I'm gonna give us a 5-minute pause, and then we will come back because we do still have some significant agenda. Everybody back. I'm gonna go ahead and reconvene this meeting and move on. We're gonna reconvene out of recess and move on to item J. Item J, I want to begin discussing some of the big ticket items before we get to the retreat on Friday. On the retreat on Friday, we have a whole day planned, so sorry, but we're expecting to go the whole day. I'm planning to start at 9 o'clock. And we'll go the whole day. So you should be getting an email from Cassie. We always decide to support a local restaurant that in need. This year, we're going to support Morty's, so we'll order from Morty's Cafe, and the retreat is at Station 32, if you didn't catch the memo, so the new station. If you go to the old station, you will be the only one. So.
Well, that sounds like a good idea.
You might as well not come. All right, so the first, we divided these up into two parts for the purpose of discussion. And the first part, can we get this to pull up?
Oh.
So the first part of this is large ticket items that are new requests that are over 10K. There's several really small ones that are also in the budget, and these would be divided from non-staffing and also in a separate discussion after this about staffing. But we want to kind of talk about these, get you familiar with them, so that when we start to divide out what we're going to be able to afford and what we're not, that you've got some time to look into it. All right, so does anybody have any specific comments? We know that dispatch is a big change we didn't plan on years ago, but it's been thrust upon us. Can we blow that up any for the bottom portion of that page? I don't know if that's doable or not. You know, scroll down.
I guess when I make it full screen, it doesn't stay like that. I'm just kind of.
All right, so that's the biggest one and the biggest impact that we can't avoid. The ones in green are because they're eligible to come out of separate funds, so they don't have to come out of the same dollars. We will talk about that at the budget retreat when we will divide up where the dollars can come from. Are there any others besides dispatch? Because we can talk about that one for a long time, but it's non-negotiable, unfortunately. So, are there any other items you'd like to discuss or ask questions about previous to the retreat? We will have more information at the time. We have been scrambling all week. I mean, this has been a busy, busy week for Steve Brody and I, trying to keep up with getting all of the numbers together. No one? No? Okay, then let's roll on to the new staffing requests. These are the things that have been requested from departments. We will have to make some choices because there's no way we can afford all of them, but is there any that you'd like to talk about in particular?
Well, I feel like we were told we have to do the crossing guards, correct?
Yeah, so the crossing guards, the 4 new ones are because a new school is coming online. We have no choice on that.
Right.
Because that we're just obligated. I would love to have the school district contribute to these, but until that happens, we have no choice but for us to do it. The coordinator for the crossing guards is a new request, and it makes sense that we would take it. It essentially gives time back to a sworn officer, because the crossing guard would not have to be a sworn officer, the crossing guard director. So that's actually kind of a best use of cash, and it's not really as expensive as other options. So I like that one. The firefighters, while we definitely need firefighters, I feel like we may have one more shot at getting the legislature to pay for those. So that's a possibility. I know it's not our favorite idea, but I think we have to consider it. And you just heard Cresta talk about the parks maintenance workers. Again, these are your decisions, council, but we have to talk about.
I would be interested for the parks maintenance workers, if she had to pick one position, what position would she pick?
Well,
Is that
essentially,
something that we wait to talk about at the tree?
yeah, I think that, I mean, first of all, anybody can reach out to any department head at any time. That's always on your plate. I think that the maintenance workers are essentially the same worker, just is how you assign tasks to that person. What would be different is, and I'm trying to see, is it on the list? It's not on the list. So we had the last one that she mentioned, I'm not sure why it didn't make the list. But is the admin position. So that's the only one that's different. The others are just about how you assign out the people she has. So I don't see them as different. Yeah, she's agreeing with that. So, but it's a good question.
I missed that one. I was gonna say that needs to be added.
We will add that in. Because there is one more position at least.
You want me to answer that here?
Go ahead.
Or if there's 5 positions, I would put 3 park maintenance ahead, and then, so that one could go in each of the divisions that we have, and then the admin, and then the last maintenance worker.
Any other
Yeah, the
questions?
packet says personnel requests will need to be discussed after the council discusses priorities with our employee recruitment retention program. Who wrote that and when will that be discussed?
So Brody wrote that. He's prepared some slides for the retreat. It's one of the things that we've been working on throughout the week. Brody is scheduled to present that in the budget retreat. So yes, that's a part of it.
When we bring in crossing guards, is that, does like West Point bring in crossing guards too at the same?
Actually, they have to bring in the ones that cross in their city. So yeah, every city has this responsibility. So it's interesting because a big chunk of our students go to like Horizon Junior High. And we're only responsible for the crossing guards where they cross a street that's our street. The other ones are the responsibility of West Point. But in this case, this is the new school that is, they do now have a name for it, and that's just come in the last 2 weeks. They're going to call it Stillwater Elementary, that is down by the regional park. And that's entirely in our city. So we're going to have to provide all 4 guards. And just so you know, what happens is there is an official policy of how we do every year they have to reevaluate. I don't know if it's every year or just every time the boundaries change, but every time the boundaries change, we have to do what's called a SNAP plan, which is the most safe way. You probably can tell me right off your head what it stands for, SNAP.
So UDOT houses like the system for it. And then it's safe routes are what the school administration ultimately is responsible for establishing through UDOT. So they go in and if you're a parent of a student, you can go and look up your school through UDOT and it will show you where there's crossing guards. It will show you where there's crosswalks. It'll show you what route they've designated for certain neighborhoods to get to school. And so this 4 new crossing guards requests, it's actually 5, but because we were able to reevaluate this year because of student counts, we went to Island View.
Yeah.
And said, hey, we'd like to reallocate one of these positions and asked the administrator, the principal, to look at the safe routes. And he agreed with us. And so he went in that day and modified the route. So we actually reallocated 1 position over there. But we have involvement in this from the city level where we can give our input and say, here's what we believe. And most administrators, because they are busy with other tasks as well, are going to take our input. And so when we look at this, we say, what's the most efficient, and what's the safest route? What serves our community best? And so we haven't yet had the meeting with the principal because he's not at the school yet, but that's scheduled for next week or so.
And it actually stands for Safe Neighborhood Access Program. And there's a federalized standard that they go through and decide what the best, safest routes are. I will tell you one problem that we do have in the city right now is we have in one neighborhood in particular with the new school in West Point, who are saying we don't want to follow that program. We don't want our kids to have to walk to the nearest crosswalk. They should just be able to jaywalk. Well, this is on us to help promote not on us alone, but the school in particular to promote, these are the safe routes. And if you choose not to use them, I can't like have random mid-block crossing guards because that's not safe. So it is a formalized program that says this is the way that you get the most people, the safest way who walking there, and we have to supply guards for those spots. So that's how that works.
Is this the universe of new personnel requests? I mean, I'm assuming that if a request is not on here, a department head who has not made a request is not seeking an employee.
That is
That
correct,
right?
except for the one we missed in Parks. I confess I didn't see that one and I missed it. I didn't miss it.
That was me.
Yeah, anyway, we missed it. Sorry about that. It's gonna be corrected. But yes, this is everything that was requested through the first phase where department heads say, this is what I need to function at these levels. And so that's the request. Nothing has been omitted.
So in these costs, it's payroll and benefits only. What comes with this a lot of times are your equipment, your training, even your vehicles, which you'll see in our 5-year capital plan. There's 4 vehicles for the park maintenance workers and 1 for the fire inspector, if they were to be funded. And then in the operational budgets, if you went through fire and parks, you'll see the equipment,
Uniform.
all the different, line items that go with.
Uniforms, if an inspector needs a subscription to the guidelines, all that stuff comes per employee. So this is wage and retirement and benefits. The equipment will be broken out and it will be flagged in the budget when we go over it on Friday so that you see that these are only in there if we add the position. And that's another thing we've been working on, is trying to tie things together so that when we start to make the decision, we know what the full cost is.
Everyone saw that the budget documents are out there on there.
Yeah, the full budget did get completed on Saturday, thanks to Steve staying here all day Saturday.
Part of the job.
I mean, I really have to thank Steve and Brody. They've worked a lot of overtime this week to get this prepared. And I even came in on my own for a day and wrote memos and stuff. I mean, we've spent a lot of hours just to get to this point, and we've made no decisions. It's all there for you to decide.
I mean, I don't have any particular questions right now. I think I really like the exercise of the budget retreat where we get to kind of examine it as an entire picture and brainstorm and see where our priorities lie and what monies we do and don't have. And
I mean, it's a step process, and I know that everybody'd like to see it all up front, but this is what we could get done by the time this packet had to be out. Tomorrow, we will put out a packet for the budget retreat. You already have the entire budget. The only thing that will come with the new budget or the new packet would be the schedule and setup to make sure we've included all the decision-making elements. We're doing it as fast as we can. It's just a lot to do, and particularly this year, there's a lot more variables than we've had in a while. Just getting data on our where we expect to be with all these new businesses has been a little bit of a challenge.
yeah,
But we have some projections of where that will be, so we have a firm grasp on where that might land. There's always variables. You just have to do the best you can. All right, any other questions? Anything on the budget's fair game at this point? We're gonna work to get to Friday where we will discuss it in great detail.
Great.
I know it's one of the most thrilling days of the year, but
Can we sit in those comfy chairs over there on at Station 32?
Yeah,
The recliners.
Yeah.
We need you to stay away.
Okay, seeing no other questions, then I will adjourn this meeting.